Zoey's Extraordinary Playlist is a high-concept series about a girl named Zoey Clark who's a computer coder in San Francisco who gets the ability to hear people's inner thoughts and feelings through big musical numbers. And the show is a joyful, hopeful, exuberant show about somebody learning how to connect with other people and to discover what's really inside of them. This idea originated because my father died 8 years ago from a disease called progressive supranuclear palsy, or PSP. And the last year of my dad's life, he could not speak, could not move. He was lost all of his abilities. And a lot of times during that year, I wondered what was going on in my dad's head, what he was thinking, what he was feeling. And when I started thinking about an idea for a show, I thought, wouldn't it be great if we could know what was going on in my dad's head during that last year of his life? And then when I started thinking about ways in which we could discover that, I thought, wouldn't it be interesting if the way my dad communicated with the world was through song and dance? I'm a little bit of a theater guy. I had a musical on Broadway. I did the live Sound of Music for NBC. And so my mind tends to go to a musical place. And the idea of being able to communicate with my dad through song seemed very exciting to me. I came up with this idea of wanting this girl to have this desire to connect with other people but not know how. And so suddenly, if she had the ability to look inside someone and to see what their inner thoughts and feelings were, then she could use that in some way to help connect with other people. And so it started with my dad and then it started with my father and then became something much bigger than that. The series starts with Zoey going through a little bit of a rough time in her life. She's getting into a lot of disagreements with her next door neighbor. She's having a hard time at work where she's the only female in this computer coding male environment. Her father's dying of this rare neurological disease and she's feeling kind of trapped. And she goes to get an MRI because she's having headaches and she's worried that she's gonna have the same thing that her father has. And while she's getting the MRI, she has a fluke accident. An earthquake hits while she's in the MRI machine. And all of the songs in the world get uploaded into Zoey's brain. Everything from Apple Music and iTunes and Spotify and all that kind of stuff. And so when she comes out of that, suddenly she has this unique new ability to hear people's inner thoughts through big musical numbers, through all of the greatest songs over the last 100 years. Now with this new ability, suddenly she's able to connect with others. She's able to use that to help her get the promotion at work. She's able to use this new ability to connect with the neighbor that she's never been able to connect with, to talk to the guy at work she's always had a crush on, and suddenly start to expand her world and expand her horizons and become a deeper thinker, a more sensitive person, a more creative person, and somebody who's not so binary. This show is about hope. This show is about empathy. This show is about not judging a book by its cover. This show is about what you think you know about somebody and what you think they project to the outside world isn't always the same thing of what they're showing on the inside. And so during our time right now where there's a lot of conflict in this world and there's a lot of anger and a lot of animosity, to be able to look inside somebody, to hear their inner song and to realize that we're not so different or to realize that they're hurting in very similar ways that I'm hurting. Ultimately, this show is about finding connection and it's about communication and it's about using music as the universal language to help people communicate with each other. Zoey hears other people's heart songs in the show, and I call it heart songs because it's really the feelings that are coming out of their heart through song. And so she's able to learn what's going on with people, what they're actually feeling on the inside through these musical moments, hence these heart songs that are indicative of their true emotions. In Zoey's work life, there's several different dynamics, but the first dynamic is with her boss, Joan, played by Lauren Graham, who we're very excited to have on the show. And Joan is kind of this tough love boss. Because Zoey and Joan are the only two women in the workplace, Joan feels a responsibility to help boost Zoey up, but she also wants to make sure that she is strong and tough and determined that she can fit in this world filled with men. So they have this very kind of tough love mentor-protege dynamic that gets more and more complicated over the course of the season as they start to bond and connect with each other, and Zoey starts to see sides of Joan that she never knew. Then there's Max, played by Skylar Astin, who is Zoey's best friend at work, who also, not so secretly, has a crush on her. Then there's Simon Zoey's work crush, played by John Clarence Stewart. And we learn in the pilot, John Clarence Stewart, Simon seems like he is this completely charismatic, dynamic marketing guy at the company, and Zoey is afraid to talk to him. And when she gets this ability to hear people's heart songs, she hears him singing Mad World. And she realizes this guy who seemingly has everything made on the outside is actually deeply, deeply hurting on the inside. Mo is Zoey's next door neighbor, and at first Zoey and Mo have a very confrontational relationship, but after Zoey gets her new abilities, Mo becomes Zoey's guide and teaches her how to harness her abilities, why she has these abilities, the power of her abilities, and how she can use these abilities as a force for good. I think the show will surprise people because it's a comedy, it's a drama, and it has a lot of big, fun musical numbers that are super dynamic every week. And I think there's a combination of things that are happening on the show that you don't see everywhere else. There's things that'll make you laugh, there's things that are really deeply emotional, and there's a real joy and hopeful quality that's in the show. And we're using the biggest songs that have ever been recorded. Mandy Moore, who's our choreographer, who did La La Land, and So You Think You Can Dance, these numbers are unlike anything on television. We are truly doing a musical every 8 days when we shoot this show, and yet it feels grounded, and it feels present and unique, and not unlike anything on television, and not like a musical either, because it's really grounded in deep human emotions. I think the number that I can't wait for everybody to see in the pilot is Help by the Beatles. I think that number is big and joyous and expressive and emotional and completely sets the tone for what we're trying to do in the show. So everybody on the show is singing live. It is all their own voices. We're not doing any records with everybody else, and it shows the level of talent of the cast that they're all able to sing the songs as well as they do. Zoey's Extraordinary Playlist is hopeful. Zoey's Extraordinary Playlist is uplifting. And Zoey's Extraordinary Playlist is magical.